Mollusky Sluggy had never really been interested in the events and, to be fair, general existence of the small yet loud town of Crustonshire. He had his house and they had theirs, and he believed that that was enough for a respectable distance away from them. Mollusky's house was just where he had always wanted it to be, a nice little nook on the edge of a cliff. He enjoyed his life, away from all of the crazy goings-on of Crustonshire, and he made sure to learn as much about everything in the woods as possible. He was always finding new ways to do his daily tasks, like picking out berries that didn't cause instant death when being eaten, gathering firewood to warm his home, and gathering scraps of metal and other various valuable materials. For the berry picking, Mollusky designed a small, bowl-shaped four-wheeled machine to drive around and pick out all of the berries that weren't poisonous. To do this, Mollusky designed the machine with a picture of the berry type that wasn't poisonous embedded inside of the machine's brain chip, and the machine used the picture as a reference as to what kind of berries it was supposed to pick. To gather firewood, Mollusky designed and built a machine that planted, grew, and then cut down a specific plantation of trees, so as to not cut down any trees that weren't meant to be cut down. The machine also helped with the fact that cutting down trees is tiring, and could take an extremely long time, cutting off time for other work in the day. Mollusky gathered the scraps himself from Crustonshire's scrap heap, which was located on the outskirts of town, far enough away so that Mollusky felt comfortable traveling there. He knew what kinds of parts he wanted, and his interests for parts changed quite frequently, so he decided it would be easier to pick out the parts himself. His newest obsession, as of 3 months before this, was automobiles, for he had just started to hear the roars of the engines of cars cruising down the roads of Crustonshire, which was the only thing, as of recently, that had actually interested Mollusky that was going on in the town in a long time. Mollusky was fascinated at how fast, loud, and perfectly engineered the cars the townspeople had were. He even managed to make a smaller version of one of the cars for himself based on what parts he had, and the parts of cars that he could find in the scrap heap. He was quite proud of his glorious machines, but none of the machines had so much pride from Mollusky that it rivaled the pride he had for his automobile. He kept it in as good of condition as he possibly could, and built an entirely separate garage from his original just for the car. His original garage was for his other numerous inventions, while the new garage was to keep the car safe from any of the miscellaneous materials that could potentially damage it in the original garage. Occasionally, Mollusky would consider that maybe the people of Crustonshire would accept him, and not get scared of him again due to the giant shell growing out of his back, and that maybe he could travel there and visit the people of the town like he wanted to all those years ago when he was just a child, before he grew his shell, and before everyone screamed and ran away from him like they didn't know him at all. Mollusky would then remember the things that had happened when he woke up on that fateful day so many years before, when he found a shell growing off of his back, and when his parents entered the room and screamed, throwing him out of the house and into the street, where all of the other townsfolk did the same, running and screaming, as if Mollusky was some sort of beast. This was at the time of the Dark Days, where anyone who looked, talked, or were more different than the average Joe was a person to stay away from. Mollusky would remember that day and decide not to go down to the town, for he felt that it was the safest option. That is, until one day, he heard a very startling sound coming from the road to the small, yet loud, town of Cruston.